month-by-month bailout installment hunt and inevitable continuation of conditionalities. Like a drug addict that would agree to anything just to take the next dose. So this would put an end to it and open the road for investment from the European Investment Bank, and open and calm things down so that discussion for the viability of the Greek debt and the inevitable haircut may start. But they don't care about it. Varoufakis' proposals have the unbelievable merit of being both reassuring for the European taxpayer and bringing hope to the Greek people. If this proposal was to be agreed on, Syriza would become the absolutely dominant party of the political field in Greece. And that is, in my view, the reason why the Europeans refused to accept it. Instead, they made leaks that supposedly the Greek banks would remain closed on Monday. This is a direct attempt to invoke a panic, to foment panic in Greece, and bring the government to a tough situation where it would sign anything just to keep things calm. This is not going to happen, I'm afraid. The Greek government, Greek government, as I see it, is not going to be blackmailed. Now, they have called for a special EU summit on Monday to discuss the Greek issue. It seems like, once again, there's not going to be a deal. They will try to foment panic and then have Tsipras surrender on Thursday at the regular EU meeting, the summit. I don't think it's going to happen. But are they really prepared to let a Grexit happen? Absolutely not. And that's why they believe they can blackmail, simply because the Greek government doesn't want it either. So a simple default will have a bad short-term effect on the Greek economy without the threat of Grexit. So they're trying to squeeze without bringing it to the point of a collapse of the Greek banks. Here we have to say that there is, as you said, a mild bank run in progress already. But here's the interesting thing. The ECB, the European Central Bank, came in again today with yet another ELA extension. ELA is Emergency Liquidity Assistance, as it has done almost every week till now. And once again, it saved the Greek banks. So the ECB, while not providing normal liquidity, because it has stopped accepting Greek bonds as collateral the minute Syriza was elected, it has nevertheless pushed huge amounts of emergency liquidity that the Greek banks operate with these last 4 months. So who's afraid of a collapse, really? And what will happen to the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Italian bonds if Greece were to default June 30th? We need to see this.
I think the other thing, Michael, to add to that is now this question of the Ukrainian default looms very large. So Greece by itself, one thing. If you add in these other places, right, add in Portugal and Spain. But then if you add in Ukraine, you get a much, much bigger shock that I don't think they have any way of being ready for.
Yes. Will Merkel really become the chancellor to break up the Eurozone? I don't think so.
It's not a winning resume, is it?
Yeah, of course. Helmut Schmidt, the former chancellor, says today Greece must get a significant haircut and a big investment package. Tremonti, the former finance minister under Berlusconi, came out this week supporting the kind of policies Syriza is calling for. So will Merkel become the chancellor to break up the Eurozone? I don't think so. But in order not to do it, she has to make concessions. Well, given the hard line she's kept until now, how can she make any concessions without guaranteeing a huge political win for the left in Europe?
And we also have this crazy Madame Lagarde, as we call her here, Lagarce. Look that one up. And Lagarde is saying, you know, we'll give you nothing. We won't give you a day of extension. We have to have adults in the room. Right? Insults left and right. So Merkel has a hard time getting back from the brink because Lagarde is standing behind her and pushing over the brink.
Yes, and whenever you hear someone barking like that, it means they're in a tough situation themselves. So I don't know who's in a tough situation, the Greece, the Greek government, or themselves, because they're going to be humiliated if another failure comes to the IMF record. So I think Lagarde is pushing for exactly this reason, because she's afraid of losing yet more credit. The IMF losing even more credit, because no one wants the IMF anymore to be to come into their country.
Nobody wants to submit to conditionalities or memorandum or letter of intent, right? That's the kiss of death.
Yeah. So where can this lead? I don't know. But June 30th is coming, and I find it far from impossible that Greece is going to default. And as I see it, it would be a good thing, I think, because it will force European politicians to clear things up. You know, is a default a deadly sin? Do we break diplomatic relations with someone who's bankrupt? What is this? European ideals? It would bring some. It would be cathartic, I think, for European politics.
I don't think we need to have an exaggerated fear, because even after a default, there would be some days when these people like Merkel could come to their senses and say, okay, we're going to finance you to stop a world panic. Okay, thank you, Michael. We'll see you next week at the same time. And again, it's the afternoon of Friday, the 19th of June. And now we have the sad task of pointing out the significant errors that have crept into the most recent papal encyclical. This starts off with the promising reference to St. Francis's Canticle of the Creatures, right? Laudato Si, be praised. But unfortunately, the conclusions that we find here are not in line with the urgent needs of the world economy and, above all, the people that are on the brink of starvation or needless death. And indeed, we ought to remind ourselves that the principal problem of the world is this number. It could be 30,000 or 40,000 or 50,000 people who die needlessly every day because of starvation, malnutrition, these kinds of useless deaths that can be avoided for pennies. Still claim, and we ought to find it in the United Nations Human Development Statistics, very large numbers of victims. We have to first deal with the reality or not of global warming. Now, it's quite possible that there is global warming and that it is due to solar activity. This is the overwhelming conclusion to which I, for one, have come. There probably is some warming going on. It may or may not be exaggerated, but in effect, it's something that comes from solar activity, and it's part of a natural cycle, which we have seen, for example, at work in the medieval warm period, from about 1000 AD to 1200, 1250 AD. Gets us back to the time of the Magna Carta, which we were discussing last week. But there was this medieval warm period, right? This is the time when the Vikings or the Northmen or the Norse adventurers were able to spread out across the North Atlantic, reaching places like Iceland, Greenland, Labrador, parts of Canada, and so forth. And it's the time when vines were growing, right? If you get to North America and you call it Vineland, well, then that's precisely what we're talking about. That it's warm enough for that kind of situation to obtain. We're going to continue this in just a minute, but we're very happy to be joined by Reverend Edward Pinkney from that Michigan prison system where he is kept as the #1 political prisoner here in the United States. Reverend, welcome.
Honor and a privilege, and I tell you, yeah, you said it right. I'm here at the Lakeland Correctional Facility. I'm being held as a hostage That's what they're doing. And we just have to make sure that we're doing the things that need to be done. I just got off the phone with the attorneys, and everybody is excited. We're ready to roll. Within the next 10 days, we will be at another level of dealing with this corrupt system. So I'm feeling good. And
so, Reverend, will that be a hearing? Will that be what exactly are we talking about? Without giving away any of the trade secrets,
that will be a file. We will be filing for the appeal bond at that time, and then they're going to take a look at it, and then they're going to have to make a decision when I will have a hearing in reference to it. So it should be early. I'm looking early July. Whatever it is. You know, my goal is to make sure that I'm doing all the things that need to be done to make sure that people understand that we're exposing a corrupt system that was built on corruption, and we have to let the people know, which is far more important than anything else that we might even think about. So I'm just doing what needs to be done. That's all it is. I want to be an example for other people that that have to go to prison and actually is innocent of all charges, and just show them what we can do, because I'm expecting to win this case overall, and I'm expecting to show them what we can do and show the people that corruption can't be stopped.
And in the meantime, this is, of course, the prison industrial complex. This is the mass incarceration of black people, poor people, and so forth. It's this system which really looks more and more like the concentration camp system, right? You put people at the lowest possible standard of living, and then you expect them to work, and that's for profit, and it's looking uglier and uglier.
No, and nobody will believe that, you know, that some of the stuff that, and some of the ghost stories that goes on, you know, when you think about this criminal justice system, you talk about a system that has 2.3 million people locked up, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, unless the people from the outside. See, it's not really the people on the inside. It's the people on the outside have to speak for the people on the inside, because that's who they listen to. They do not listen to people that's locked up. So we have to make sure that the people on the outside understand how important it is, and we need them. We need them to speak up. Right now, what I'm doing, I'm putting a group together. I'm expecting to have a visit today from people from Wisconsin coming in, and from different places, Lansing. Everybody want to come in and do some work. People are moving in that direction to show that that just because a guy is in prison, don't make him a very terrible person. So we're moving in all kind of directions to show that we can do some things, and people are really interested. Which is, I'm shocked to hear how people turn their back on people that's in prison.
And you're certainly right. So let's remind people that the way you make your voice be heard is to go to bhbanco.org, BH Benton Harbor Banco Black Autonomy Network of Community Organizations .org, and look a little bit on the lower right-hand side. There's a PayPal. Make a contribution, and Reverend, you memorize your address better than I can. So that's the other way to do it, is to send it in.
1940 Union, Benton Harbor, Michigan 49022. Banco, BANCO. And I want to say this, Webster. I want to thank you for all the hard work that you have done. I want to thank Danielle and Jeffrey. And I want to say this to Jeffrey. If you happen to speak to Jeffrey, tell him to email Tim, and he's going to send him a brief so he can tweak it a little bit. But we want him to work on it, not just read it and say it's good. We want him to give a reply back. That's what we want to do. And within the next week or so, we plan to definitely file and get it moving. But we need it done. We need lawyers who are willing to stand up. We need lawyers who are willing to go the extra mile. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who's not afraid to stand up to this corrupt system. When I talk about Barron County, I'm talking about a criminal enterprise. That's what they are. They're a criminal enterprise, and they've been doing the same thing for years. They've been doing people this way, but we have to make sure we're moving in the right direction. And this is something we can do, Webster. This is something we can do, but we have to stand together. It doesn't make a difference whether you're black, white, red, yellow, brown. or any other thing, the color that you might want to be or want to say you are. If we work together, we can win. It's more of us than them. We can win this battle. And I want all the listeners to know this. We're not just here spinning our wheels. We're here fighting for justice for all. And the people here in prison,